Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Jeanette. This is a channel where I talk about movies, TV shows, and anything I could think of. If you're listening for the first time, welcome. And if you're coming back, welcome back and hope you're doing well. Today we are going to be talking about award shows, how they were formed, how they started being televised to the public, and how, for your consideration, were exploited, as well as other discrepancies that may have caused a decline in viewership for these award shows and other award shows. In particular, the Oscars, Grammys, Tonys, and the Emmys. Before we get started, please like and subscribe for more content. Disclaimer, since I'm not an expert in the Grammys or the Tony Awards and the industries behind them, I will not have a lot of input on it compared to the movies and TV shows. I will mention a few events for both awards, but won't flesh it out as much as the other ones. Also, I will only be focusing on the top awards for the music, TV, film, and theater. So there is going to be no SAG, no DGA, no PGA, no WGA, no MTV award, or any other awards that end in awards. However, it does include the fact that some of the things that I might talk about won't reflect the same for the rest of them. So in terms of how the awards show started, for the Oscars, the first Academy Award presentation was held on May 16th at a private dinner function at the Hollywood Roosevelt Hotel in an audience of about 270 people. 15 statues were awarded for that year, honoring artists, directors, and other participants in the filmmaking industry of the time for their work during the 1927 to 28 period. And the ceremony lasted for about 15 minutes. Winners were announced to the media 3 months earlier for the second ceremony in 1930, and for the rest for about a decade. The results were given to newspapers for publication at 11 p.m. on the night of the awards. However, in 1940, the Los Angeles Times announced the winners before the ceremony began, and as a result, the following year, the Academy started using sealed envelopes to reveal the names of the winners on that date. No one knows for sure how the statue received Oscar as its nickname. According to legend, the award got its nickname in 1931 when a secretary at the Academy saw the statue and exclaimed, "Wow, that reminds me of my Uncle Oscar." And a reporter overheard the remark and used it in a story, and that's how the name stuck. And fun fact, the term Oscar is a registered trademark of the Academy of Motion Pictures of Arts and Science, which I did not know. And hope you don't copyright me.
No! Wait. Hey! Wait!
For the Tonys, the award was founded in 1947 by a committee of the American Theater Wing, or ATW for short, headed by Brock Pemberton. The award is named after Antoinette Perry, nicknamed Tony, who was an actress, director, producer, and co-founder of the American Theater Wing, who died in 1946. As her official biography at the Tony Awards website states, Pemberton proposed an award in her honor to distinguish stage acting and technical achievement. And the first Tony Award was held in April 16, 1947 at the Waldorf Astoria Hotel in New York City. The first prizes were a scroll, a cigarette lighter, and articles of jewelry such as a 14-karat gold compact and bracelets for women and money clips for men, because I guess they felt that women can't hold money.
Money, please!
As awards were handed out, they were called Tonys. Nonetheless, awards were sometimes referred to as the Perry Awards in its early years. And it was not until the third award ceremony in 1949 that the first Tony medallion was given out to winners. The medallion was designed by art director Herman Rose. It is mixed of mostly brass and little bronze, with nickel plating on the outside and a black acrylic glass base and a nickel-plated pewter swivel. The face of the medallion portrays an adaptation of the comedy and tragedy mask. Originally, the reverse side had a relief profile of Antoinette Perry. This later was changed to contain the winners' names, along with the award category, production, and year that they won it. The medallion has been mounted on the black base since 1967. A larger base was introduced in 2010. The base is slightly taller by 5 inches compared to 3¼ inches, and heavier with 3.5 pounds compared to 1.5 pounds. This change was implemented to make the award feel more substantial and easier to handle, according to Howard Sherman, the executive director of the American Theater Wing. He quotes, "We know the physical scale of the Oscars, Emmys, and Grammys. While we're not attempting to keep up with the Joneses, we felt a significant award and it could feel and look a bit more significant." And he also says that when the winner holds it up over their heads in triumph, they don't have to worry about keeping the grip. And I guess he said that you could tell the difference. For the Emmys, CITED initially rejected the idea of television awards for the Television Academy. CITED recognized the image building and public relations opportunities associated with the annual award ceremony and changed his mind. And once they agreed to go forward with the awards, the founders were faced with 2 daunting questions. What is the name of the award and what should it look like? CITED initially proposed to have the award be called Ike, which is a nickname for the television iconoscope tube, but it was deemed too evocative to the World War II hero and later the 34th President Dwight D., aka Ike Eisenhower. Henry Lupke, the 3rd Television Academy president, eventually prevailed with Emmy after the Image Orthicon camera tube, which was the instrumental in development of television. Emmy was then feminized as Emmy to complete the design chosen for the statue to depict a winged, idolized woman holding an atom. Her wings represent the muse of arts, and the atom is electrons and science technology for the new medium. The Television Academy rejected 47 proposals before accepting the statue design by television engineer Louise McManus, whose wife served as his model. The first awards, which were devoted solely to local Los Angeles programming, were held in January 25th, 1949 at the Hollywood Athletic Club. There was another group called the New York Television Group that kind of focused more on awards given to the people in the East Coast. The Grammys had their origin in the Hollywood Walk of Fame project in the 1950s, as recording executives on the Walk of Fame committee compiled a list of significant recording industry people who might qualify for the Walk of Fame star. They realized that many leading people in their business would not earn a star. They were determined to rectify this by creating awards given by their industry similar to the Oscars and Emmys. And after deciding to go forward with such awards, question remains on what to call them. So one working title was Eddie, to honor Thomas Edison, who was the inventor of the phonographer. Eventually the name was chosen after a mail-in contest whereby approximately 300 contestants submitted the name Grammy, with the earliest postmark from contestant winner J. Dana from New Orleans as an abbreviated reference to Emile Berliner's invention, the gramophone. Grammys were first awarded for achievement in 1958. The first ceremony was held simultaneously in 2 locations. On May 5th, 1959, at the Beverly Hilton Hotel and Park Sheraton Hotel in New York City, with 28 awards going out. And the second Grammy Awards, which was held in 1959, was the first ceremony to be televised, but the ceremony was not aired live until the 13th annual in 1971. The number of awards given grew, at one point reaching over 100 awards, and it fluctuated years with categories being added and removed. Most of the major awards, like the Grammys and the Oscars, are presented at a live televised ceremony, commonly in late and early March following the relevant calendar year, and 6 weeks after the announcements of their nominees. The Tonys are awarded in June, and the Emmys are awarded in September, but they used the same 6 period for the nominations. The Oscars were first televised in 1953 by NBC, which continued to broadcast the event until 1960, when ABC took over, televising the festivities, including the first color broadcast of the event in 1966 through 1970. NBC regained the rights for about 5 years, and then ABC resumed broadcast duties in 1976, and its current contract with the Academy runs until 2028. The ceremonies were moved up from late March, early April to late February since 2004 to help disrupt and shorten the intense lobbying and ad campaigns associated with the Oscar frenzy. Another reason was because that growing ratings success coincides with the NCAA basketball tournament. The show was aired on Tuesday, but the ceremony was moved into the first Sunday of March to avoid a clash with the Winter Olympic Games. Another reason for the move to late February and early March is also to avoid award ceremonies occurring so close to religious holidays like Passover and Easter. After many years of being held on Mondays at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time since 1999, it was moved to Sunday at 5:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And the reason, given that there would be more people that would be at their house on Sundays than on other days, and it would kind of like avoid the rush hour traffic and jams that could happen in LA, and also it would help the people in the East Coast to go to bed in time. For many years, the film industry opposed the Sunday broadcast because it would cut into the weekend box office. In 2010, the Academy contemplated moving the ceremony even further back into January. However, such an acceleration of the schedule would dramatically decrease the voting period for its members to a point where some voters would only have time to watch certain films. And furthermore, a January ceremony on Sunday would clash with the National Football League playoffs game. There has been a few times where the Oscars were postponed by a day or two, like the 40th Academy Awards due to the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and the 53rd Academy Awards after the attempted assassination of Ronald Reagan. For the Tonys, the first 18 years of its early run, it was a dinner gala that had about 1,000 guests and were held in different fancy ballrooms, quote unquote, all around New York City. In 1967, the American Theater Wing got a new president, Isabel Stevenson, who invited the Broadway League, which back then it was known as the League of the New York Theaters, to co-present the Tony Awards. They also decided to relocate the awards to Schubert Theater to make it into a 1-hour televised show, and this was the first time the Tonys had ever been broadcast, and it changed the game in bringing the Broadway into Americans' living rooms. In 1997, the Tonys were moved to Radio City, and with the exception of being at Gershwin Theater in 1999, stay until 2011. And since then, the Tony Awards have been bounced back and forth between the Beacon Theater and Radio City. But the Emmys, the first telecast was broadcast locally on Los Angeles TV KTSL. The first telecast was swift and just gave out 6 awards at the time. The eligibility to win an award was limited to shows produced in Los Angeles, airing only in local surrounding media market. And during that time, television sets were not yet a household staple. At that time, less than 1 million TVs were in the US. The Emmys did postpone their show a couple times. After 9/11, the awards show set for September 16th was postponed to October. However, after the declaration of war from the Bush administration, Emmy executives postponed the telecast once again. The telecast finally aired in November, making it the first Emmy event to ever be postponed twice. And the Emmys this year was postponed to January 2024 for the 2023 year due to the writers and later actors strike. The first Grammy Award telecast took place on the night of November 29, 1959, as an episode of the NBC anthology series NBC Sunday Showcase, which normally was devoted to plays, original TV dramas, and variety shows. Until 1971, award ceremonies were held to both New York and Los Angeles, with winners accepting at one of the two venues. Television producer Pierre Cosset bought the rights to broadcast the ceremony from the National Academy of Recording Arts and Science. CBS bought the rights in 1973 after moving the ceremony to Nashville, Tennessee. The Recording Academy announced in June 21st, 2011, that it had reached a new deal with CBS to keep the award shows on the network for another 10 years. As part of a new contract, the network would also air a nomination concert special in the last week of November, where nominations would be released during the special exclusive to CBS rather than the traditional early morning press conference to multi-network press pool. This ended after the 2016 concert due to low ratings and criticism about the announcement format. And as of 2017 nominations, there have been revealed in a roundtable conversation with the Recording Academy representatives during CBS mornings. Though since 2020, it has returned to a traditional noontime Eastern press release statement and highlight of the show's award nominees on social media. From 2004 to 2019, the Grammys were held at the second Sunday of February, which is usually the week after the Super Bowl, with two exceptions. If the day was February 14th, it was moved to the following day, and if it was Winter Olympics year, it was held earlier on the last Sunday of January, which is the week before Super Bowl. Starting in 2020, the Academy Awards ceremony would move back to the second Sunday of February, forcing the Grammys to move back to the last Sunday of January to avoid conflict with either the Oscars or the Super Bowl. And to allow enough time for preparation, the cutoff date for eligible recordings were moved from September 30th to August 31st. This change reduced the eligibility period for 2020 awards for 11 months. The 63rd Annual Grammy Awards were postponed from its original January 31st, 2021 and was moved to March 14th, 2021 due to the musical impact as a result of COVID-19. The 64th annual was postponed from its original January 31st, 2022 to April 3rd, 2022 due to health and safety concerns related to COVID-19's Delta Cron hybrid variant. The ceremony was also moved from the Crypto.com Arena in Los Angeles to the MGM Grand Garden Arena in Las Vegas due to the former having scheduling conflicts with the sports games and concerts nearly every night through April. So Be Kind Rewind does a great breakdown of the modern take campaigns, particularly in the film industry, and I will link her video below. Harvey Weinstein, as we all know, and was back in the day a successful and very big producer. So he took his platform as a top producer in the independent film industry and used it as a way to make sure that his movies receives awards, not just awards, but the Oscars. As a result, he started paying for your consideration ads and did showings and got the word out to people to make his movies not only get nominated but also win. And when I mean win big time. For Shakespeare in Love, for example, the mailing campaign he waged was the most aggressive and probably most expensive in Oscar history. Weinstein insisted it was less than $5 million, but it was probably as much as 5 times that. There was a lot of backlash from Spielberg, DreamWorks, and almost everyone in Hollywood, but because Weinstein was so big and almost knew everyone, it was kind of hard to criticize him for that. With all that work, he was able to have Shakespeare in Love beat Saving Private Ryan during the 1999 Oscars for Best Picture, among other awards. I would not say Harvey Weinstein started this whole thing of how he exploited for your consideration campaigns. I would say that he made it public that this was happening, because I feel like that even despite not knowing it beforehand or in prior years, I feel that they probably were still happening, because there are movies in the past that haven't been well known, or they won and everyone was like, what the hell? And I say this on why Harvey wanted his movies to win was mainly because if your movies, plays, shows, or albums win awards, let alone get nominated for awards, you can boast about it for almost decades. Even if the work may not be that great, like a particular movie, a lot of producers and corporate execs believe that the average human isn't that smart enough to understand how and why a movie is bad. A lot of times when you see like DVD sales and you see that a movie was nominated for 10 Oscars and won 8, including Best Picture, yeah, you're gonna want to buy it, because you're gonna be like, wow, like I guess like this is a really good example of a great movie. I mean, no offense, but that's like the gist. For the Grammys, there is a code of conduct of how voters should vote to make sure voting isn't biased. So they encourage voters not to vote for certain albums or songs or artists based on their personal friendship with that person or group, along with company loyalties, regional preferences, or sales and volumes popularity. However, it's kind of hard to make sure who is voting correctly, and also how do we know that they're not being biased? They also said that voters shall not accept money or anything value in exchange for votes. And they also said that voters shall not enter into agreements or understanding on how to vote. And this includes voting blocks, which is a group of people that decide to vote together. And also, this is kind of like known throughout like the other awards, that you can't cast negative comments on other nominations that are in your category or in someone's category. Though most of these rules are wise, it's kind of hard to really make sure that this happens correctly, because it's kind of like one of those things where like you almost had to go into like a deep investigation for everyone. For the Emmys, I'm not sure if Weinstein's For Your Consideration campaign strategy influenced them or not, but Netflix and Amazon has taken For Your Consideration campaigns to a whole new level for the Emmys. For the one stage season, now find studios approving generous budgets for billboards, mail promotions, parties, and dinners, with the express purpose of getting shows, actors, and writers in front of would-be voters. The Oscars may have some restrictions on what the studios can and can't do to influence would-be voters, but the Emmys hunt has turned into Wild West with no holds barred campaigning. Each day for a few months of voting, thousands of Emmy voters had received mailed packages filled with elaboratively designed boxes that contain DVDs for award contenders, and are mailed in a large number of potential voters. Executives estimate that the packages cost some networks more than $1 million, and for a select few, over $2 million. Industry executives concede that a majority of these discs are most likely not to be watched, and there's something anachronistic about sending DVDs in the streaming era. But if one network sends out big packages, the others feel compelled to do so. A typical event includes a panel discussion with actors and writers discussing the past season of a contending TV show, and it's usually followed by a party with an open bar and dinner, which sounds amazing.
Hey, pal, what can I do you for? Free drinks, what do you have?
Several executives noted that there were certain Academy members who were showing up for a little more than a free meal, which yeah, I feel like that's like pretty important. The Academy organizes a calendar that allows one network a day to stage an event in Los Angeles and occasionally another event in New York on the same night. However, because the voting time frame is a bit short for the Emmys. A studio is unlikely to get more than 3 or 4 slots, which to showcase its candidates. Netflix had a few slots on the sanctioned calendar, but elected to rent out a 24,000 square foot multi-level space in Beverly Hills to stage a competing event, cheekily called FYSEE, for your C. Get it? Because they can't put FYC, so then they put SEE. They would also schedule for your consideration events on the same day as other for your consideration events from other studios, which is kind of frowned upon, but I mean, there's no rules for it. It just says you can only be able to schedule something with the Academy for their studio, but doesn't really say you can't do anything else. For the Tonys, it kind of seems in my honest opinion, and again, I am not an expert in the theater industry or anything about that, so if I sound ignorant or you later found out that I said something wrong, please let me know in the comments, but please don't get mad at me for not knowing. I tried my best. In my honest opinion, I feel that the eligibility of being nominated for a Tony is a little strict compared to the other awards. In order for a play or a musical to be nominated, they have to meet certain requirements. For the play and musical, they have to be in Broadway. They can't be in anywhere else. They had to be in Broadway, which I did not realize that. They have to be in Manhattan and in Broadway during the time. If it's off Broadway, they can't be nominated. If it's a classic, and by classic, if it's a musical or a play that has been originally ran in the past, and this is just a rerun or a revival, they can't really be nominated for Best Musical or Best Play. Instead, they can only be nominated for the revival categories, while meeting the requirements of being in the contention for the nomination. The theater not only needs to be on Broadway, but it must have 500 or more seats, be used principally for the presentation of legitimate theatrical productions, and be deemed otherwise qualified by the Tony Awards Administration Committee. The play or musical has to have an official opening date the producers publicly announce, and they have 32 days prior to the date the awards are set to be eligible. And there's also a time frame where your play has to be open for about 14 days to be eligible, just to be in the contention to be nominated. But then if you are nominated, you have within that 32-day mark to kind of reach out to voters. Producers and production must invite in a timely manner and free of charge each of the eligible Tony voters, as well as members and alternate designees of the Tony Award Administration Committee, to attend a performance of the production. The nominating committee is made up of rotating groups of approximately 50 theater professionals who serve for overlapping 3-year terms. The committee members are asked to see every single Broadway show for that time period. The committee then votes on the nominations, which are normally announced in spring and about 6 weeks before the awards. So the process of determining which productions or elements thereof are to receive Tony Awards is intended to be conducted in a fair and ethical manner, having the highest regards for standard of quality represented by the Tony Awards and related presentations. And the person voting for the Tony Awards and producers of eligible productions are intended to act in full support of that goal, and not to take authorizations or any actions that is inconsistent with the undermines the letter of spirit of these rules or goal. Producers may distribute for your consideration packages to Tony nominators each of the following and only of the following. So they could send a souvenir book, a script, an audio or a video cast recording that replicates the on-stage performance of the eligible production, and the whole or a substantial part of the play or musical, including the commercials or snippets. One set of selected reviews regarding the eligible production. A cast album or sampler may be sent separately unless available at the time of distribution. And they also says that any public communication, including all communications by production to the Tony nominators and or voters, oral or written, that promotes a particular production or element thereof or any other candidate for the Tony Awards by disparaging or casting a negative comment on their competitors is strictly prohibited. It quotes, utilized by a production in any public communication must pertain solely to that production. So whatever play or musical that you're trying to get nominated or win, you can only talk about that. Even with all these rules and regulations, they still do for your consideration packages. You do have famous campaigns like Avenue Q that kind of did a grassroots approach, but a lot of producers and campaigners in an interview tend to state that they just let the play or musical do it for them. Like, they don't really do as much campaigning as movies and TV shows do. I'm not sure what it is in New York City. I'm not sure if it's like really hectic over there. Let me know in the comments if that's the case. In terms of the positives of these awards, I do enjoy watching the people who win and people who deserve to get an award in particular. So recently there's been a lot of performers as well as people behind the camera or behind stage that are getting their due diligence and taking awards that they deserve. There's also a lot of nominees and winners that are people of color and that come from various sexualities and disabilities, and that's great. Like, I really like it. In terms of discrepancies, I have this theory that I just kind of feel that, especially for the Academy Awards, people, whether it's behind the camera or the performers, I feel like that they sometimes win awards for something that is dull compared to their past performances that were really great. So for example, Jimmy Stewart won for A Philadelphia Story instead of Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. Jennifer Lawrence, she won for Silver Linings Playbook instead of Winter's Bone. Robert Duvall, Tender Mercies instead of The Godfather. Does anyone remember Tender Mercies? No, I only know one scene, and that was it. And then Jane Campion, The Power of Dog instead of The Piano. I mean, come on, The Piano? These occur mainly because voters were already going to give the awards to someone else. And sometimes even those winners won the award for something that was less memorable because they lost it to someone else who also was in their shoes prior to that year or so. So one example that I could find, out of all of them, I found one. So Jennifer Lawrence lost for Winter's Bone because Natalie Portman was winning for Black Swan. Natalie Portman lost for The Closer because Cate Blanchett won for The Aviator. Cate Blanchett lost for Elizabeth, the movie, because Dame Judi Dench won for Shakespeare in Love, and we know how that went. Judi Dench lost for Mrs. Brown because Helen Hunt won for As Good as It Gets. And I feel like that there's other threads for other categories, but that was kind of one that I remember the most. There are lesser awards that are given out to people who deserve the main ones. For example, Jordan Peele, he was nominated for Best Director and only got for Best Original Screenplay for Get Out. And Kendrick Lamar, his album Damn was nominated for Album of the Year, but he only won for Best Rap Album. And I can understand that The Shape of Water and 24K Gold were probably really big hit at the time, but it's given the fact that Jordan Peele and Kendrick Lamar are doing really good performances and their works reflect American society, it was worth for them to get those awards as well. But that's just my opinion. Also, some of the rules end up eliminating contenders almost by ironic misconception and just ignorancy. For example, Lionheart, it was Nigeria's first entry for Best Foreign Film at the Oscars, was denied entry to be in the nomination category or be in contention to be nominated because it contained more English-speaking parts than Nigerian local language, even though the country mostly use English as its main language. And due to the backlash, the Academy Awards changed the name from Best Foreign Film to Best International Film. Not sure how that changed it at all. However, they still note that the requirement for the nomination does require the film to have non-English speaking parts. And it's ironic because one of the nominations for 1983 was an Algerian dance film called Le Bal, which was nominated despite completely lacking any dialogue. The in memoriams are also not that great. For each of the awards, they have been starting to use in memoriams to honor those who had made significant contributions to each industry and died within the last 12 months since the last awards ceremony. However, critics argue that it's mostly a popularity contest and feels that the audience varied their applause to those who have died. I also feel like they don't give enough time to remember the people who have passed, and I feel that they kind of place like the popular people in certain areas of the segment in order to give them like more attention, and then they also give them extra time and extra scenes to showcase their performances. There's also have been controversies in the past where there have been people that have died the previous year, but then they don't get recognition for their works. Also, the shows are long, so a lot of the ceremonies, they go about 3 hours. Most of the segments and skits that they have, they just don't make sense. I don't know. And then they kick out like lesser awards and place them in another separate ceremony, which they like mention like in the middle of the award shows. So the Oscars generally average 3.5 hours, with the 2002 ceremony lasting for 4 hours and 23 minutes. Wow, that's like The Irishman and maybe bits of Killers of the Flower Moon. In 2010, the organizers of the Academy Awards announced winners' acceptance speeches must not run past the 45-second mark. This, according to organizer Bill Mechanic, was to ensure the elimination what the term the single most hated thing on the show. Wall Street Journal analyzed that the average minutes spent across the 2014 to 2018 telecast were 14 songs performed, 25 of the host's speeches, 38 of pre-recorded clips, 78 of the awards themselves, which are broken down into 24 of the introduction and announcement, 24 of the winners walking on stage, and 30 of their acceptance speeches. Originally, Oscars had Lifetime Achievement Awards to be handed out in the ceremony. However, they were moved to a prior event called the Governor's Awards starting in 2009. So the Grammy Awards, viewed by those tuning in as glitzy events, actually only feature a small fraction, around 10% of the trophy awards given out to each year. So a majority of the Grammys are distributed during the premiere ceremony, which is a lesser known event in the music industry, but one that is incredibly important nonetheless. And the ceremony is several hours long, which is probably The Irishman plus the Killers of the Flower Moon plus silence into one. It also includes numerous speeches and performances, with over 80 trophies being handed out this year alone. While TV portions get all the attention, the premiere ceremony is where the majority of the work of the Grammys actually take place. The premiere ceremony is much more relaxed affair when compared to the telecast, and the audience is composed of a mixture of industry professionals, nominees, and loved ones. For the last 2 decades, the Oscar ratings have declined. For example, the 78th Academy Awards, which awarded low-budget independent film Crash, generated an audience of 38.64 million with a household rating of 22.91%. And they argue that most of the ceremonies that have smaller independent films winning Best Picture or other awards tend to not have as much viewership compared to ones that do have like a larger popularity, like Lord of the Rings Lord of the Rings. Which would be the reason why we're seeing more commercial successful films like Barbie, The Avengers Endgame, and Black Panther to be nominated for Best Picture. However, by doing this, I kind of feel that it tends to snub the smaller independent films who probably have a stronger story and greater themes and characters in it. Same thing with the Emmys. They said that the recent awards ceremony was the lowest. It averaged 4.46 million viewers, which is down from 25% from the previous, which was 5.92 million. The awards hit a low in viewers in the 5th time in the past 6 years. For the Grammys, surprisingly, the ratings have not decreased. In fact, it increased this year. And I kind of feel that it's because of the nominations. The audience size for the telecast is generally well below that of the Academy Awards, but the program reaches an affluent audience, which is prized by advertisers. According to 2003 article from the New York Times, what the Tony broadcast does have is an all-important demographic, rich and smart. Jack Suzman, the CBS senior vice president at the time in charge of specials, said the Tony show sold almost all its advertising slots shortly after CBS announced it would present the 3 hours. It draws upscale premium viewers who are attracted to the upscale premium advertisers, and viewership has declined from its early years of broadcast history, but it has settled between 6 to 8 million. Most of the award ceremonies kind of use the ceremonies as a promotional ad for each industry. When Pearl Jam won a Grammy for Best Hard Rock Performance in 1996, lead singer Eddie Vedder commented saying, "I don't know what this means. I don't think it means anything." Maynard James Keenan, who is lead singer of the band Tool, did not attend the Grammy Award ceremony to receive one of the band's awards, explaining that, "I think the Grammys are nothing more than some gigantic promotional machine from the music industry. They cater to a low intellect and they feed the masses. They don't honor the arts or the artists for what they created. It's a music business celebrating itself." The Grammys have also been criticized for generally awarding or nominating more commercial success albums rather than the critical successful ones. In 1991, Sinéad O'Connor became the first musician to refuse a Grammy, boycotting the ceremony after being nominated for Record of the Year, Best Female Pop Vocal Performance, and Best Alternative Music Performance. She said her reasoning came from the Grammys' extreme commercialization of the industry, and also I feel like that the awards are not fair for the average artist. In 2024, Rihanna Giddens described the financial strain of attending the ceremony for middle and working class musicians. She criticized the Recording Academy for introducing a policy charging nominees $1,200 for a +1, saying the policy makes it even harder, even more obvious who is valued, and most specifically what that would be lots of money for the folks in the back. A Billboard article clarified that the new policy was a tiered system ranging from $375 to $2,000 for a ticket to attend a pre-telecast. So the platinum is $2,000 per ticket, gold is $1,000 per ticket, silver is $562.50. Why it was at that price, I have no idea. And bronze tier is $375 each. All of these pricing tiers include the premiere ceremony, however none of them includes the after party. And at least with the Oscars and Emmys, they give the nominees 2 tickets free of charge. And I cannot find an answer for the Tonys, but I do know that their tickets range from $631 to $431 with a $6 facility charge. In terms of my opinion, I kind of feel that the award shows have gone a bit overboard. I do feel that For Your Consideration campaign kind of favors more to people who can afford to market their products and their works. It's just not really worth it for the average artist. They tend to be kind of at the short end of the stick, where they tend to not be able to dress up in a fancy outfit, let alone have a +1 with them. I also don't think that they give enough time for the winners to have a say, and I don't think it's right to rush the best editor winner after 45 seconds, but then you let the best actress to just stand there for 2 minutes. If you want to say that you only have 45 seconds, then that should be for everyone. And I feel like they don't really need all those like skits and pre-recorded clips. Like, it's not really necessary unless it's the Grammys or Tonys. I totally get it because they're a live performance. But when it comes to like the films and TV shows, like, you don't really need that. I also agree with the commercializations, the awards. I feel like that they sometimes give like a bad idealization about each industry and doesn't give the realities and like the hard work that it takes to get to that stage. If they would have been honest to be like, the studio spent this much money on marketing, then I'll be like, okay, that it's honest, you know. But yeah, that is it for me. Apologies if this is a long video. It was going to be just like Oscars and the Emmys, but then I kind of felt bad because I was like, oh, like I need to add the Tonys and Grammys and not make it seem like that I'm just focused on the TVs and films. So I tried my best to get as much information as I can. If you have any comments or opinions on what you think about the award ceremonies, as well as like particular award ceremonies, let me know in the comments. Also, if you live in New York City, let me know about the For Your Consideration campaigns for Tonys. Like, I want to know. If you have made it at the end of this video, thank you for listening with my monotone voice and now broken down voice. As an achievement, here's a photo of a results that no one expected, but I think a small few people expected. If you like this video, hit the like and subscribe button. So far, I think my original goal was like 10 subscribers, but then that exceeded expectations. So now my goal for 2024 is to have 15 subscribers. Right now, as I'm speaking, it's 13. So I just need 2 more left and then I am set. But yeah, thank you guys again for staying this long and hope you come back next month. Bye.